Hey YouTube, gonna do a quick video for you. This is on internet caution. Was just sent to me by Bill Bowen off of silentlambs.org, and I looked through it briefly, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in here that we can review and take something away with. All right, this is called internet caution. We're going to read through some of this here. The internet is a revolution of education that allows a person to access material and info in ways that could have never been done otherwise. It has allowed people to educate themselves and research points of concern in a matter of minutes that in years past would have taken months or years to find the same material. The internet also offers a vast communication network to people around the world to make connections and has had a positive effect on many lives as a result. So while there are some positives, there can be some dangers, and he says that the user must be aware of these areas in which people have been conned out of their money, out of their honor, their self-respect, and it is good to be aware of certain areas in which caution is needed. All right, so let's take a look at this here. The internet forums and Facebook. These are public or private areas where anyone who registers may post comments for anyone else to respond. Generally, it requires an email and a name to register, password, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. It says when you post on a forum, that information can be retained for infinity. Even if the forum goes away, anybody can copy and paste material and use it as your words for years to come. Be careful of what you post. Many register on anonymous email service such as Gmail or Yahoo under fictitious info and are thus able to maintain an anonymous presence on the internet. And we have this a lot in the XJW community. It's called faders. But you must realize not everyone that says they're a fader is a true fader. Sometimes they're not really faders. Okay? Even so, you must be careful not to reveal personal info about yourself or pictures, as it can be easy to determine who you actually are. If you wish to maintain anonymity, do not tell where you live or work or provide info about your family or the names of your kids. All such info can compromise your identity. Many might choose to lurk, which means just view material instead of posting comments on public or private forums. So if you are a fader or you're someone who does not want to divulge their identity, then you just heed these things. Don't give them your personal info. And it's easy to trust people if you're coming from the Jehovah's Witness religion. When you start talking to other people who have left, that Jehovah Witness mentality can still be lurking, in the sense that you're too accessible to people, you're too open to accepting just anybody because they're an XJW or they have a sob story. We must realize there are people in this community who are not really ex Jehovah's Witnesses, and they may have had a sob story, but it's not the struggle that you and I and the rest of us have had. Okay, but they can gather enough info to create a type of XJW sob story or struggle to reel you in. So you must be careful of that, because I've seen this quite a bit. All right. Forums and Facebook can have a nasty side. There are those who will attack a point of view of an individual and encourage others to join in. It might be compared to a shark freedom feeding frenzy, and you are the meal. Are you thick-skinned? Can you ignore people who make up untruthful info about you and have unlimited time to fabricate gossip? This can be difficult to do when you get on the wrong side of certain people. In most cases, rather than waste hours and hours of fighting with people who have nothing better to do, it might be better to just leave and move on to another forum that is better moderated, or just take a break for a while from the internet. And this is something I recommend on the rag, because as new people come in and out of the XJW communities and groups, you're going to need to have a periodic cleansing and a purging. You're going to get to know people better, and you're going to see some people as, okay, this is where I want to end my engagement with this person. We're no longer a good match. And then you can go further with those that you do feel you're a good match, where you're like, you know what, I've gotten to know this person to a limited extent, and I feel like this person is safe and cool enough to continue having a type of communication with over the internet. I don't want to say friendship because, to me personally, friendship and acquaintance are two different things. I will call someone an acquaintance uh, sooner than I will call them a friend, because a friend to me implies a whole other level of communication and friendship or relationship. So, having said that, and rather than fighting with people, you can go to another forum. You can take a break. There's all kinds of different options you can do. In other instances, it has been found that many forums in the XJW community are peppered with profanity, nudity, and sexual comments. And this is happening. It's not just on Facebook. We have had this nudity stuff on YouTube as well. Many do not realize that this information can be copied and shared with friends and family for years to come. Do not post or say anything you would not want to be on a billboard in front of your home. You have no privacy on the internet, and anyone can use it against you if they choose to do so. Sexual predators often frequent the XJW community forums to seduce newly leaving members of the opposite sex, who can be very vulnerable into various behaviors that range from cyber sex, text sex, phone sex, or ultimately meeting for sex from unsuspecting parties who are married or would typically not participate in such a lifestyle. Do you see that here? I don't know when Bill Bowen wrote this. It doesn't have a date on here. It might have been something recent that well, I don't see a date. But interesting that he had a post up already about the very issues that have been discussed in the communities here. Sexual predators often frequent the XJW community. Folks, if you're a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, you need to perk your ears up and listen up to this. Even if you're not a survivor of any kind of abuse, you're still fair game. Sexual predators, they can be sex workers, okay? They're not all male. There are sexual predators that are sex workers. These often frequent the XJW community forums to seduce newly leaving members of the opposite sex, who can be very vulnerable into various behaviors that can range from cyber sex, text sex, phone sex, or ultimately meeting for sex from unsuspecting parties who are married or would typically not participate in such a lifestyle. These seductions are started by flirting on public forums, which follow up with private emails, chat, or Skype, or Google Hangouts, in which matters are taken to another level. Examples of areas that are used to facilitate these seductions are instant messaging, of which persons can talk privately in real time as they type on a keyboard and share photos or video. Public chat rooms and forums can lead to private chat rooms where a person may feel free to comment as they wish and share photos or videos they would never post publicly. This is where they get you. Because remember, they can save this stuff forever. You see? Blackmail. And that happens a lot. They have some pictures on a person, and now they're saying, well, my light bill needs to get paid. I'm behind on my rent. What are you going to do about it? They might not come out right and say, if you don't give me some money, I'm going to send you pictures out. Or, they might not even let you know they have pictures, but, the person might say, oh, I should have never gotten naked in front of this person. What if they took pictures and now they can blackmail me? And the person hits you up and says, oh, my transmission needs to be overhauled. Can you help me out? What most may not be aware of is that any message, photo, or video you post publicly or privately by forum, email, texting, instant message, or chat can be a matter of permanent record that can be saved by an unscrupulous person. Many times it has been discovered too late. The seeming innocent flirting, sharing of intimate pictures, videos, private email, to outright cyber sex with a person you thought you could trust has been recorded and shared as a source of amusement among a demented individual's fellow predators, or even posted on the internet. It has caused the breakup of marriage, embarrassment, loss of self esteem, and much heartache for those that have been tricked into these situations. To the predators, it is a joke they play out over and over again, using flirtation as the start to troll for unsuspecting victims in the XJW community. Some use their popularity within the XJW community as a basis to pretend to be assisting those with questions or active against the organization while making a game of assessing future seductions. This is what we call the XJW hooker activism or XJW tranny hooker activism. This is what's out there, folks. It's real. It's crazy. I couldn't make this up any better myself. You know, a story writer couldn't make this up any better. But this is real, and you need to pay attention and be careful. XJW groups and forums and organizations. So even the groups and the organizations, you have a lot of different organizations within the XJW communities. Okay, so you still need to look out. These groups often have an agenda or a mission. So when you join a Facebook group, when you join an activism group, understand they have an agenda. There's a mission. Some carry forth high ideals in the work of assisting others and being a support to those that are hurting emotionally. They endeavor to promote healing and positive works on behalf of others, and this is certainly a worthy cause. And then there are others that do quite the opposite. They put forth an agenda of destroying the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses to feed off the anger of those that are hurting. They claim to have high ideals, but their actions prove far from it. Excuse me. It has been noted that many hurtful dealings are done privately and even publicly to show their true colors. What are some of them? Revealing the private identities of Jehovah's Witnesses who are trying to fade in order to get them disfellowshipped or ostracized from their family, covering up child abuse, using litigation to bully abuse survivors into silence, using their position as leaders to seduce members of the opposite sex and send nude pictures, assassinating the character of people they do not like with false stories and misinformation, claiming to have moral outrage while participating in deceptive and immoral behaviors themselves, taking donated funds and using them for private vacations and personal funds, attacking, wow, attacking anyone that does not agree with them and cutting them off as a form of disfellowshipping, doing evil and malicious things to innocent people they claim to be helping. These types of behaviors are exactly what Jehovah's Witnesses describe apostate XJWs as being, and as a result, they become a self fulfilling prophecy of self destructive activities. When you see these types of actions, distance yourself quickly from these types of groups, as they will serve no useful purpose, and you can actually be sharing and supporting their hurtful activities. Now, I will say this. I think there's three types of groups. You have the ones that have their stuff together and they're doing positive things. You have groups like this one he described that, are the opposite. And then I think you have also some groups kind of in the gray area that don't have their stuff together. They're causing a lot of trouble, but their heart is in the right place. It doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't excuse anything, but you do have a lot of groups that still are trying to get things together. And when you're talking about activism and organizing a group in general, it's very difficult. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It's not going to be a walk in the park. Even if you have money, even if you have lawyers, even if you've done it before, it's still a very difficult process to get these kinds of organizations off the ground and viable. So, given with all of that, you will have to watch out when you join groups. Blogs. This is a new form of communication that puts info out quickly. Excuse me. Bloggers want to have a following. And if they are good writers, they can offer many colorful stories about many topics. The blogger profits off the number of people that visit the page, so it is to their advantage to keep new info out there as it creates more income the more people that visit. Remember, a blogger is just a person with an opinion and often an agenda. They will often misrepresent facts to suit their agenda or promote people they like. They will fabricate facts and omit pertinent info to make the reader think this is the real story, when in fact it is only promoting their private schema. Always check facts, review history, and get the full picture before allowing a blogger to shape your viewpoint on a topic or matter. Doing so will help you to have a more balanced perception and not be tricked with misrepresentation of the actual facts. Because of the reasons stated above, many choose to remain anonymous on the internet and at least be careful what they post and say. If you wish to be known, then remember everything you say can become a part of a permanent record. So use caution in whoever you may interact with, and remember anything you communicate via your computer or telephone can be shared with someone else. Just because a person says something does not mean it is true. Anonymous websites, be particularly on guard of anonymous websites. Be on guard of a person who runs websites or forums that hides their identity. So you need to really look up who owns a particular website when you're dealing with a group. And 9 times out of 10, the identity of the owner of the website is going to be hidden. So why, ask yourself, why is that the case? All right. Why do I not get the full story on who and what I'm dealing with? You may not know who you are dealing with when a person wishes to offer a service and hides their identity. There is often a reason that relates to something dishonest or illegal. A legitimate service provider of internet website or forums should provide a legitimate telephone, mailing address as well as where the business is located. This helps the user know who is responsible for the material as well as gives them proper recourse in the event of a problem. Now, I want to stop right here because you also have groups that say, oh, there's no leader, there's no one in charge. Everyone is part of the group. Everyone that's an ex Jehovah's Witness is part of this group. Everyone that's an apostate is part of this particular group. And Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, you can Google them. They have a lot of business books and information on how to avoid mistakes, big time mistakes, organizational mistakes, business mistakes, finance mistakes, and just really everyday common sense. And there is a syndrome. It's called Serpico syndrome that begins to build when no one is in charge. Because when no one's in charge, no one's accountable, you see. But there are still issues and problems that come along with having a group or an organization. You can't get around these issues because you still have to deal with people. And when you're dealing with people, you're going to have the same issues and patterns surface, whether it's a family, whether it's a group, a nonprofit group, or a church, or a corporation like Target. You're still going to have to deal with these common patterns and organizational issues because you're dealing with people. Well, when no one's in charge, then a lot of room is left for more problems, much, much more serious problems because no one's being held accountable. There's no one in charge. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. You cannot have a viable organization without someone somewhere taking charge and being accountable. And one of the first things, legally speaking, that people will be locked into is who is running the websites and who's responsible for what's on it. And while there's a notion, I think it's pretty romantic. It makes me feel warm inside in my heart. It gives me a warm fuzzy feeling to say, yes, anyone who has left Jehovah's Witnesses, anyone who's an apostate is now part of this group. We accept them all. Anybody who's doing something good to expose the watchtower. Well, if there's something that comes up in a legal issue, the court's not going to say every ex Jehovah's Witness now needs to come into court because we're going to hold them responsible since this thing says that every ex Jehovah's Witness is part of our group. No, there are certain procedures that are going to be taken, and there's certain checks that they're going to look for. And whoever was behind that is going to be the ones held accountable if that comes to a legal situation, you see. And You have to be careful with groups like this. When no one's in charge, when there's no official person in charge, then there's a lot of room for all of these things that you just read: thievery, deception, sexual predators, sexual harassment, and people showing nudity, and people eliciting sex services and things like that. You will have this in these kinds of groups because there's no one in charge to check it. So be careful with groups that don't have official anyone officially in charge, because there are people that will do things. They will take the leadership when it suits them, but when it's time to really take accountability for the group, then no one wants to touch it. And this is human nature. It's not anything where you can say, well, this is what I don't like about the XJW community, because this is something that happens even when people are in charge. In corporate America, you have management shifting responsibility to different managers. Even when they are officially in charge, you still have people trying to shift responsibility and accountability because it just doesn't feel good. Who wants to be responsible for trouble? Who wants to be responsible to fix a very serious issue? Especially when they're just new, come along new, and have no clue about it. So keep that in mind with groups. Now, it says here at the end, while this may not address all the dangers, it is important to be aware of the info cited above. So this isn't everything, but it's still something. With freedom comes responsibility, and individuals need to be aware of the pitfalls to protect themselves. At Silent Lambs, we would never encourage abuse survivor to go to a place where they might be abused by the lax responsibility of those that operate and administrate websites, activist groups, or forums with problems described above. It is a buyer beware moment. We hope this information can prove useful to those that may choose to participate on the internet. And I'm totally in agreement with this here. I really appreciate this article because it really brings home the point. You've got several points here to consider. But if you want to take a look at this article, it's at silentlambs.org/internet caution.htm. All right, thanks for watching. I've got one more video up, which will be on Twitter, so be looking for that next video on Twitter 101 for activists. Thank you.